Okay, we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning, Economic Development, and Housing, also known as PDH. Today is Wednesday, September 7th, and it's 5:30. So I just want to make everyone aware that tonight's meeting is being broadcasted live on HPA-TV's Xfinity Government Channel 96 and Frontier Government Channel 6032. It will also be streamed via the HPA-TV Facebook page and HPA-TV Apple, and also TV, Amazon TV, Roku TV as well, and apps. And then it'll be rebroadcasted when made available on HPA-TV YouTube channel. All right, so I would like to acknowledge at this moment my council colleagues. We have Councilman Nick LeBron. We also have Councilman John Gale. We also have Councilwoman Tiana Hercules. Bear with me, I'm still, okay, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon. Let me see, where else do we have any? Okay, so I think okay. Yep, I think I got everyone there. Also, we also have the director, Charles Matthews. We also have Director Liani Arroyo, and my screen's just bouncing all over the place as people start coming on. And I believe do I have a corporation counsel on here? I don't see.
Aaron Howard, Director of Economic Development.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Charles. We have Director of Aaron Howard as well, and then I think
Owen Dirch, one of our senior planners, on to talk about one item. I just saw that one.
Okay. Speak on one item. Okay, so we're gonna rearrange the items on the agenda. So we're going to start with item 2.3. Mayor Bronin with a company resolution authorizing the city of Hartford to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with Gateway Partnership LLC. They did have a public hearing Monday, August 15th at 7 p.m. And this is the Arrowhead Development, which includes the Arrowhead Development transmittal letter. So we have, I believe, Director Howard, you're going to speak on this, correct, on this item?
Yes.
And just to go with the flow, we're also going to follow through with item 2.1, which is Mayor Bronin with a company resolution authorizing the city to accept a $6.3 million Communities Challenge grant from the Connecticut Development of Economic and Community Development, which is DCD. So this is a Connecticut Community Challenge grant, and this is also part of the Arrowhead project. So, Aaron, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Charles, did you want to just do a quick introduction?
No, you go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. Awesome. Good evening, council members and everyone else on this call. I'm excited to be here tonight to present to you the Gateway Project, which is a partnership between Carabetta Companies and the San Juan Center. I do have a presentation for you, so I will go ahead and share my screen. Great, can you see that?
Yes.
Wonderful. So we are really excited about this project. As everyone may be aware, the city has been actively trying to encourage development north from downtown. As you know, there's been a lot of investment in the downtown north gateway projects. And here we have one of the first projects that's going to benefit off of those investments that have been made by the city over the last few years. The city currently owns the property that we refer to as the Arrowhead Cafe building. On this photo, you'll see it's the one with the Hartford Thanks You with the murals. And what you're here to listen to tonight is a presentation with a council resolution authorizing us to move forward with moving forward with Carabetta Companies and San Juan Center, along with a 10-year tax fixing agreement for the development of this overall area. So just quickly, the Arrowhead and Beyond project summary. This is a transformative project. Again, it's called our Gateway Project, connecting downtown to our North End neighborhoods. This is a public-private partnership. It is a partnership where we're combining 4 city-owned properties with 4 privately owned underutilized lots to bring about 7,300 square feet of new commercial opportunities, along with 43 new residential units to the neighborhood. The picture over here is just a site rendering of what was presented to the city. Just so we have some context, the first picture in the first set are the city-owned properties that you're aware of. We own the Arrowhead Cafe, which is this building that you see on the site, and then the property just north of that, along with 2 smaller lots to the south. The privately owned properties, the developer has been negotiating with property owners at 525, 529 Anicello, along with 506 Anicello and 520 Anicello to create a broader redevelopment of this corner. Here are the existing structures, just to give you some context of what we're talking about. Arrowhead to your left. This is the co-op building in the center, and then the Flatiron building to your right. So on this slide, this kind of talks to you about the overall vision and overall redevelopment plan for the site. Earlier this year, last year actually, the city went forward with an RFP for the redevelopment of this area, along with a Arrowhead small gateway planning effort. And so what you see on this page is actually the renderings and concept plans from that effort. And what we talk about is redeveloping this overall site to include some infill development. And then most really exciting is really transforming Anicello Street, closing it down, creating that pedestrian atmosphere, really trying to create like a Pratt Street, smaller scale, but Pratt Street environment right at this corner, right at this gateway. So here's just another description that's showing you in context the redevelopment of this entire area. And what I don't show here on this page is just to the south of this is Parcel A of the Dono redevelopment. And so Dono redevelopment would be this area here to the, on the photo here to the right, you will see some parking. This is the parking lot that's tied to the Parcel A for the overall Dono redevelopment. And what we should share with everyone is this has had an extensive amount of planning effort that's gone behind it. Not only have we been working with the consultants on the gateway plan, we've also been in discussions with Randy Salvatore, who is the developer for RMS Companies. We thought it was really important that we needed to make investments in this overall block. And so the Arrowhead Gateway is just that one piece, but overall planning for this section talks about doing some facade improvements along Main Street, really connecting and doing a really cool infill development in this area that creates opportunities for our residents in the Clay Arsenal neighborhood. So again, just quickly, this is the project profile. It's mixed-use development, 43 residential units with a mix of studios, 1-bedroom units, 2 bedrooms, with a 7,300 square feet of commercial space. We broke this down a little bit in what will be in each of the buildings. Broken down, as you can see, for city-owned lots, we're talking about the rehab and reinvestment in historic property of the Arrowhead Cafe with an addition going north, creating 23 residential units and 4,900 square feet of commercial space. The Flatiron building would be about 14 units of 1-bedroom units. It's a whole remodel of the building, again, and another adaptive reuse of that building, including 2,400 square feet of ground floor retail. And then within the co-op building, we were talking about just adding 6 more additional residential units. As we discussed, the developers here today is a partnership between the San Juan Center and the Carabetta companies. These guys came to the table with an RFP and they partnered together with a great team of architects, planners, you name it. They were all at the table to really come and bring forward this presentation and this development plan for the overall site here. And they're local developers. Everyone I'm sure knows Carabetta companies located in Meriden. And they've got some projects in the north end of Hartford. And of course, you can't forget the San Juan Center. And we are joined here today by Fernando Betancourt. We'll give him a chance to speak in a moment. So details that are before council tonight as it relates to this overall plan and disposition. We are proposing to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with Gateway Partnership. It'll be about a 6-month due diligence period as we normally add in all of our purchase and sales with performance requirements. Our hope is to transfer this property for $1 based on the financial capital stack. We're talking about including 25% affordable housing requirement to this deal. The deal will also include a 10-year tax fixing agreement. Overall total project costs are 17.3 million. And like every single development deal that goes through this team, we have required the 15-30-15 MEB, and living wage requirements, which requires a 15% minority contractor representation on the project, a goal of achieving 30% Hartford residents in hiring of the jobs during construction, and 15% women and trade workers as well. To give you an idea of the project financing, this deal in our neighborhoods, especially even in downtown, they've been challenging to structure. And so you'll see that a lot of our deals include a lot of partners and funding partners to make this happen. So in this particular deal, we have the DECD Community Challenge Grant, which I have a slide to talk about that for a second. We have city home funds that are in the deal, conventional private loan and financing. CRDA was authorized around $4 million many years ago, dedicated to the redevelopment of this overall development. And those funds are now part of this development deal as well. The developer will bring some cash to the table, as well as historic tax credits, both state and federal, along with some energy rebates. As it relates to the 10-year tax fixing agreement, we are wishing to enter into a 10-year tax agreement that will support this development and help stabilize the development over a course of 10 years. We're looking at coming in years 1 through 3 at 0%. They will pay the existing baseline of taxes that are currently there today on all of the properties, and just no increase for those first 3 years. Years 4 through 5, we're proposing a 5%. These are all based on gross revenues. These are typical of what we've done in previous deals recently, including 525 Main and 275 Pearl. And then we jump up in years 8 through 9 for 10%. And then years 10, we bring it up to 12%, with getting them to where they need to be as far as taxes in year 11. This is approximately a value of around $548,910 going into this for taxes for this development. And based on current mill rate, although, and as everyone knows, that does change. So we do our assumptions based on what we have today. This will generate about $133,000 in taxes come year 11. So part of this to make this deal happen is a communities challenge grant. Folks may be aware that last year the state came out with a community challenge, or beginning of 2022, a communities challenge grant process where the state of Connecticut was funding grant funds into development projects that were very close to being shovel ready. We were excited. We partnered with Gateway Partnership at the beginning of this year and submitted the grant application to the state of Connecticut. And we have been successfully awarded those funds, which is a $6.3 million grant from the state of Connecticut under this program. The full 6.3 is not going directly, all going towards this development project itself. About 5 million of the funds would actually go to the developer here, where the remaining 1.3 will be set aside for us to truly create that pedestrian walkable feel of Anicello Street and the surrounding sidewalks to really fully flush out this overall redevelopment of that block. And as you know, as whenever the city receives funding from the state of Connecticut, we do need to go to council to authorize the mayor to enter into any agreements related to the award of those funds. So as Councilman Sanchez pointed out in the beginning of this discussion, we also are here today to ask you to authorize us to proceed with accepting the 6.3 million, which is a critical component of making this project overall happen. So with that, that is the conclusion of our presentation. At this time, I'd like to give council a chance to hear from the developer, Fernando Betancourt, who's here with us today. Fernando, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your partnership. And I did not mention, which you can welcome share, the involvement that you've had with the community and the conversations you've had with the NRZ to date on the support that we have on this project.
Thank you, Erin, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you can listen to me. At the beginning, about a year ago, I thought I was the most excited person about this project, but now I yield to Erin Howard. She is completely very more enthusiastic than us. On the call, we have Eric Polinsky, my partner in crime. He represents the Caravetta company, and our intention, because we had the opportunity to testify at the public hearing, was more tonight to be here and to answer any questions you might have. But let me say quickly, the San Juan Center is very proud of being in this area for more than 60 years providing services to the community, including this kind of development services. And I think that this is exciting not only because everything that is happening with what Erin mentioned before, with Randy Salvatore, downtown crossing, and this is the perfect place to start this development, connecting what we call the gateway entry here between downtown, the business district, and the north end of Hartford. So again, I'm here to answer any questions. I'm sure that Eric will be more intelligent than me answering those questions, so he can join me too.
So do we have any questions from the council? Councilwoman Surgeon. You're on mute.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Fernando, I want to congratulate you. I remember meeting with you in 2020 when you actually started this project. So I want to congratulate you and your partners for truly doing your due diligence and making this project work. I have 100% support. I want to thank you also that you have tied in your NRZ, the residents in that neighborhood, who's 100% in support of this. And so this is what I really like more than anything else as a council person, is seeing that public-private partnership and the community supporting it 100%. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And again, like I told Charles Matthews about 2 years ago, if the community is not on board, we would not even considering applying for the proposal. Thank you again for your support.
That's right. Remember that well.
Any statements or questions from my other council colleagues? Councilman Gale.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Aaron and Fernando. Good to see you. If this, if for whatever reason, I see that you have requirements in here that there's a 6-month due diligence period. I think the questions are probably directed to Aaron and to Director Matthews. If what happens, and then they can get an extension for another 3 months. What happens at the end of 9 months if there's still nothing, no progress?
So we would most likely have to bring this back in the event that we weren't able to get there. I don't think anyone wants to see this project fall apart. So I think we would most certainly work with the developer. We put a lot of time and energy in this development project already. The developer has already started some of its initial work. We're working on securing all the financing and such. So I think it would just require us to come back to the drawing table. But again, I think there is so much commitment behind this project that we would do everything we could to work with the developer to make sure they meet those timelines and to work with them on moving forward on this project.
And if I may add, Councilperson, in DDS, through Aaron and her hard work, we have put untold hours in this project, working with Fernando and his team. So we're going to make our best effort to ensure that, to your point, it doesn't fall apart. We're not trying to have this thing fall apart. We're going to put a tremendous amount of effort to make this happen. As was said earlier, we see this not uniquely the gateway to downtown, but the gateway to the north end. And this is going to be the anchor on what we do in the north end. On one end east, we have Arrowhead. All the way west, we have Albany and Woodland that we'll talk about later. Those are the two anchors on Albany Avenue that we're really trying to make happen. So just to assure you, we're going to work as hard as we can to make sure that a fall apart does not occur on this deal.
Well, thank you. I don't need that assurance, Director Matthews. I know that you and Aaron and the entire team are always working as hard as you possibly can. So, but I appreciate you reiterating it. But I maybe more of a technical question. Do I understand from the term sheet that there's no real transfer of title until 6 months or 9 months? I guess that's really what my question is.
Correct. We would make sure, because this is going to be a disposition of land, that we would put measurements in place that would protect this transfer. So we work with the developer during this due diligence period to make sure they get all of their financing in place, the historic tax credits, their conventional financing, DECD money we still have, but we have to get all of that in order. We've worked with CRDA as well, is going to be looking at this project in the near future. That is what this time is for, in order to make sure this deal moves forward. So they will not get to closing. We will close on all the funding as well as the disposition of the property at the end of that purchase and sales agreement, but we will make sure that they have everything in place in order to start work. They'll need to go forward with their zoning permits. We'll move forward in working with them to make sure that they can get their building permits in place. The goal is to get this project to construction as fast as we possibly can during that 6 to 9 month due diligence period.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So one more question now. Let's fast forward 3-4 years, and the project's been tremendously successful. We closed on time. They went forward. It's under. And do they have the ability at that point in time to turn around and sell the project to somebody else who will be able to take advantage of the same tax benefits that we're building into this?
So typically, yes and no. I don't see them trying to sell this project or this property anytime in the near future. And I see Fernando smiling. I don't think that is any of his intentions. What we typically see, though, in a lot of our development deals is that when that usually happens, it is usually post that 10, 11-year time where they need to refinance out in the deal. I do not believe that will happen here. As long as the tax agreement is in place in order to help sustain the project, and the goal of during the tax abatement in this deal is to make sure they get to construction and they construct the property. I think we could absolutely transfer that over to the new property owner. It wouldn't add any new time. It would just be the successor to whoever the ownership is of the property. But for this particular deal, I do not see that happening at all. If at all, it'll happen after post 10 years. I don't know, Fernando, if you want to chime in on that point as well.
When I attended law school many, many years ago, they told me that all attorneys can do, everything is possible. So I'm sure there will be a clause included for that type of, but we don't anticipate, seriously, we don't anticipate doing that within the period. Actually, we're looking long-term on this project.
And I have ultimate confidence that you are and that you're going to be successful. But at the same time, I feel it's incumbent on us to protect the city. And one of the things that I'm always concerned about is that a developer cashes out and makes a profit on a project where the city has contributed. In this case, I'm understanding we're contributing about over $500,000 in taxes over a 10-year period. So I know in the past we've required that if there's going to be either an equity refinance that allows the developer to cash out, or a transfer of title where the developer is going to receive money over and above their investment, that the city of Hartford is to share in that. I don't see that that's in this term sheet, but I think I would like to see that added, and I suspect other council members would also like to see that added.
Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can do that. Again, our thought here is that the investment that's being made is to make this happen in the first place. But I hear the point is well taken. We can certainly add some language in the term sheet that allows for some clawback in the event that there is a resale, or at least a provision related to that. As long as the project doesn't change, that sort of thing. If there's no real true benefit, we can certainly do that and put some language so we can negotiate that as part of the purchase and sales agreement.
Thank you. I have nothing else, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to follow up on Councilman Gale's comment about the 6 months due diligence. I don't recall ever seeing that kind of language in other agreements, such as the one that we, I believe was last year or the year before with Wonderworks. There was no such thing as 6 months due diligence in order to achieve a purchase and sales agreement. Am I correct? Is this the first time? Is this the norm?
This is the norm. We typically put in a due diligence period throughout all of our purchase and sales agreement. It depends on the way in which we convey property. So in this particular scenario, it's a purchase and sales agreement. We have performance standards and due diligence periods built into development agreements as well. We may not have called it out specifically as part of the 525 or the 275 deals, but they most certainly do have the same timelines, relatively same timelines required as part of their purchase and sales agreements.
Okay, and then we have a question from Councilwoman Hercules. Councilwoman Hercules?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Howard and Mr. Bentoncourt for the presentation. I'm really also very excited about this project. I appreciate the intentionality with getting in touch with the NRZs and making sure that they were a part of the input through this process. I'm just curious about input and engagement with Capital Prep as it sits, you know, squarely in this area, and what that engagement has been about, and what you envision the relationship as there's going to be construction in a pretty busy corridor that's already pretty busy, and how we plan to mitigate for that. So just those are my questions.
Sure. Fernando, you may be able to help me answer some of this question, but I can say right off the bat that the city engaged in an overall redevelopment plan, or the small arrow. I can never say it correctly.
I'm sorry.
Arrowhead.
Hear me?
What is?
You're breaking up, Tiana.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the car as usual. So if you hear my question, I apologize.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
So I can say that during the Arrowhead Small Gateway planning process, all the stakeholders were engaged. The consultants went out and communicated with a ton of property owners around the Arrowhead redevelopment area. As it relates directly to this property, I have not communicated for this development directly to Capital Prep. I'm not sure if Charles has, but I do believe that as part of the process that the developer went through, there may have been some conversation. So Fernando, I'm not sure if you can share to that.
Well, basically, I don't anticipate too much disruption because it's more to the other side where the school is located. However, we have an excellent relationship with the superintendent of schools, and before we start any kind of construction or meaningful, we will have those conversations and we will do whatever we need to do to accommodate the school system there.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have any other questions or statement from council colleague, Councilwoman Surgeon?
Just want to make a statement regarding the good question Councilwoman Hercules brought up regarding the school. And I've been to a couple of their meetings when they had the community at different meetings regarding the Gateway project. And I have seen representatives from the school there. So I would say that the overall community, the school and all the residents in that neighborhood are all in support of actually really seeing that corner actually change. And it's going to be a great gateway into the city. So I just want to let you know, Councilman Hercules, that I have been to some of the meetings and I have seen people around the table. And I'm sure if they had any issues or concerns, I would have heard about those at the meetings.
Go ahead, Fernando.
Chairman Sanchez, I wanted to also, there's precedent in terms of that type of work between the San Juan Center and the school. Just recently, less than 3 years ago, we were involved in the redevelopment of our building, and it requires some last minute conversion in terms of the next street into ours, and we did that with no problem, and we had policemen involved and the traffic flowed with no problem. So there's precedent in terms of that kind of work between both parties.
Okay, so
Great, thank you.
Okay, so being that I don't see any other questions or statement from colleagues, I'd like to chime in here now. You know, if those of you who do know me, I was born and raised in the North End. My entire family, my cousins, you name it, several generations grew up in the North End. And basically stating that, you know, I also grew up in the San Juan Center. with Sacred Heart Church. I'm looking forward to this development. It's been so long that this area has been abandoned, I should say. It's been abandoned, an eyesore, and it was definitely not helpful to the community in that area. So Fernando and Eric, the Carabella Group, San Juan Center, I really commend you guys for putting this package together. I also want to commend DDS, Aaron, Charles, William Diaz, everyone for making this happen. Charles and I, we had a conversation, and the question is not, or the answer should never be no. The answer should be exactly how Charles stated, how do we make it to get to a yes? Make it happen, support our community. And I will say that once this area is developed, it is definitely the gateway to the North End, vice versa, into downtown and to the North End. I really am looking forward to this project. And with that being said, I do have a question, last question. When will we be shovel ready? I was hoping to be in October, actually this month. So what are we looking at here? I mean, how quickly can we get this moving?
I would say the spring of next year. Aaron, do you disagree with that?
No, I do not. I think that's fair timing. There's a lot of pre-construction work that has to happen once these approvals are in place. And so you'll see that happening over the winter months with the goal, as Charles mentioned, in the spring of next year, trying to get a shovel in the ground.
Okay, but the pre-construction is part of the project.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. So then definitely we're starting soon.
Yeah, so you'll see once these approvals are in place, they will go start getting their planning and zoning approvals in place as well. They'll get their historic tax credits. You'll see some news. They're going to be going before CRDA. So a lot of this stuff is going to start happening over the next few months in order to get them to a shovel-ready state come next year.
We
Awesome.
want to start yesterday.
Awesome. And then now I'd like to entertain a motion.
Councilman Sanchez, just a friendly reminder that this still needs to go to an 8-24.
Yes. So the motion would also need to be included that on the 8-24 subject to the favorable report from planning and zoning.
I support that motion.
Councilman Gale.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I make a motion that we send this back to council with a favorable recommendation with two conditions attached to that. One, that it gets approved at the A24 review, and two, that the term sheet is amended to reflect. So I'll use the term clawback.
Clawback.
Some clawback during the term of the tax fixing agreement.
Yeah, we understand.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made, properly second. Any further discussion? If none, everyone in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Okay, it's passed. So we're sending it to council with a favorable recommendation with the two friendly addition. And then we're gonna move on to 2.1, which is the actual 6.3 million dollar grant. So Aaron, would you like to speak on that?
My pleasure. So the $6.3 million from the Communities Challenge Grant is for funding for this project. As stated in the previous resolution, about $5 million of the state's funds will go towards as a grant towards the overall redevelopment of this project, and the remaining 1.3 million will go towards the closure of Anacello into a pedestrian-friendly walkway based on the concept plan that was shown. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions related to the Communities Challenge Grant.
Yes, I do have. Does that 1.5 would that be a part of a facade, or is the facade separate and it's part of the $5 million or the other project?
So the facade funding is separate. I do believe, Charles.
Yep, facade is separate. We have another pot of money where we'll be meeting with the property owners south of the project to try to dress up all those brownstones.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? No. Statements? No. like to entertain a motion. Councilman Gale,
Yes, I move to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second,
motion's been made, been properly second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, pass. Going to council favorably. Thank you, Charles, Aaron, and everyone, and Fernando. I really appreciate your efforts in definitely working and putting this package together and project together so it'll benefit our community. So now, thank you so much. So what I'm gonna skip around here. So I'm gonna do the two.
I'd like to be excused if it's possible.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Have a good evening and thank you again. All right, so we're going to skip to the nomination, make this quick. So it's going to be 2.6, Mr. Stanley Sobieski. Is that correct?
Sobieski.
Okay, so this is an appointment, and I will read it to you now. And this is, Mayor Bronin with a company resolution confirming the appointment of Stanley Sobieski to the Greater Hartford Flood Commission. Welcome, Mr. Sobieski. So please tell us about yourself, your experience. You and I had a conversation on the phone earlier, and if you can, please share that as well to the council and everyone that's on the screen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez. My name is Stanley Sobieski. I retired from the Connecticut Department of Transportation after 41 and a half years. I started in maintenance, worked my way up through engineering, planning, hydraulics. I worked a little bit I worked in surveys, then back to planning every time. As I passed an exam, I went to a different unit. One of the things I've done in my career that I was very proud of was to spend time in all 169 cities and towns locating box culverts, bridges, and we did an extensive survey in the city of Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven. And what I've done is we had a GPS program under my operation, and everything was located with longitude and latitude. We also did all the rail lines because of 9/11. I have an extensive background in GPS. One of the things that I also was on planning and zoning for 10 years here in the town of Newington. We had a lid program that we started, that I worked on, which basically we were trying to keep the runoff water on the property and not to flood the streams and the brooks and the rivers. And we did some very innovative ways of creating huge cisterns under, cisterns under the parking lots and stuff to take the runoff, put it in there, and then let it percolate through the ground after the rain. And this was one of the projects that I was very interested in doing out here. Unfortunately, due to a change in politics out here, they abandoned that. One of the other projects that I worked on a little bit was putting in and looking into doing the permeable pavement. And I don't want to keep you on here too long, but basically, permeable pavement is a thing that's coming up now, where it allows the water to run and seep through the pavement percolate to the ground underneath it. What happens is if you get in the big cities and a lot of these built up towns, everything just runs off. So that's another thing that I was looking at doing. Did do several developments in this town here where they did put permeable pavement in. It's working fine. Rain gardens was another one. So I do have some background on that. I also did extensive work for the pumping stations to locate them for Homeland Security for the state.
So I got a question. So you have the experience with working with the levees as well, and also working with the Army Corps of Engineers as well.
Yes, I worked with the Connecticut National Guard, with the Army Corps of Engineers there on several projects.
Okay, any questions from my colleagues? Councilman Gale.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see we have another I believe it's another appointment. Craig Mergens is also an appointment to the same commission, if I'm not mistaken. So my comment is really going to be directed to both appointees, and it's really to ask you to consider and keep in mind as you're working on the flood commission that at the council level, at the city level, there's been some interest. There's certainly been a lot of interest on my part, and hopefully interest on others' parts of developing and continuing to develop the riverfront. And I know Mr. Mergens was involved with riverfront recapture for many years. And so in terms of developing the riverfront, obviously the diking system is a key part of it. So I just throw it out there for you and ask that at all times as you're doing your work at the commission, that you consider the impact of whether going one way or going the other way might assist us in getting development along that river and making it more of an economic driver for the city and for the region as well. So that's my one comment. I also want to, of course, thank you for stepping forward and agreeing to be on this very important commission. We have this tremendous history where Hartford was flooded dramatically in 1936 and 1938, and now we have you all to manage our flood control system so that those types of things don't happen again. So we certainly appreciate you coming forward and bringing your expertise to the table. And I know we say this to all appointees, if it's a two-way street. So if you find in your work that council can be of any assistance, please do not hesitate to reach back out to any of us with any particular ideas that you might have. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Councilwoman Surgeon.
I just want to second all the information that Councilman Gale put on the table and thank these two gentlemen, Mr. Sabowski. I'm sorry for pronouncing your name. I apologize.
That's okay.
To actually, coming to Hartford and representing, I know the different towns make up this commission. So I just want to thank you also for, bringing your feedback from your towns, both, from Bloomfield and Newington, so we can work as a regional partnership that we all don't get flooded. Because I know all the waters run downhill, and unfortunately Hartford is downhill, So whatever you can do in your town to also be partnershiping with us to make all our towns together work together and make it a good working relationship, so we all can better our towns, especially with the climate change coming up now.
Very important.
So thank you very much for volunteering, because this is volunteering, and thank you and your family for giving your time to make all our towns better.
Any other councilman, councilwoman? Okay, Mr. Sobieski, I think I said it right this time.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sobieski, I also want to share the same sentiment as my colleagues. I also want to add that, I'm looking forward to having you on this commission. My concerned word of expertise and experience. When it comes to this levy, we can't afford to put someone on there only because we know that person or we feel it might be a good fit or what have you. My concern with this levy and the issues that, the flooding that occurred back then is addressed properly. And what I believe a lot of folks don't understand or know, that the first flooding was from the Connecticut River. The second flooding was from the Park River and the Farmington River, where because we had the levee, it had nowhere to go. And then it flooded downtown Hartford, of course, and the other towns. So, with that said, I'd like to hear a motion, entertain a motion.
Move to send the appointment of Mr. Sobieski back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, properly second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Okay. Passed to council with a favorable recommendation. Congratulations, Mr. Sobieski. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Sanchez.
And then we have item 2.5, which is Craig Mergen. Where are you? I'm looking around on my screen here. Oh, there you go. You're smack in the middle. So, Craig, it's been a long time since I've seen you. So please share with the audience who you are and what you're about and why you're interested to get on this commission.
Well, thank you, Councilman, and all of the other council representatives. I presently live in the South End on Adelaide Street, have lived there for almost 30 years. I have been a Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission member for over 25 years here in the city of Hartford. I chaired that commission for 7 years. I'm now the co-chair. I'm also the vice president of the Park River Association Board of Directors. As been stated, I was fortunate to work at Riverfront Recapture under the leadership of Denise Napier and Joe Marfuji for 29 years. And presently I am the workforce development manager at Knox, teaching young Hartford residents about landscaping and greenscape. So my background and interests and expertise is certainly understanding, I think, what Councilman Gale stated in terms of the future of the city, the condition, overall condition of the levee, and potential future development. I think my time at Riverfront created and opened people's eyes of a unique waterfront development, different than a lot of other waterfront developments around the world that existed within a floodplain. And a relatively strong 410-mile river that starts up in Canada and ends in the Sound. So as we move forward in the development of what we did there, even the creation of the rowing program, where we were pretty much told that would probably never, ever, with regard to the boathouse, never, ever get permitted, today sits a $3.5 million two-story floodable structure. So I welcome that kind of excitement and development and opening more opportunities for not only the residents of Hartford, but also the region. So I'm excited to bring that to the Flood Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mergen. Any questions or statements from my colleagues? Anyone? So, Craig, first of all, I want to thank you as well for dedicating your time and your interest on being on this commission. One of the, and this is also for Stanley as well. One of the issues that we're having throughout other commissions is that there's not a quorum. And a lot of folks that volunteer to be on a commission tends to not recognize that sometimes it's time consuming and it doesn't fit their schedule. So, but I do know that you've been dedicated to other organizations and on those meetings as well. So I look forward to working with you as well. And again, thank you guys for your interest on being on this commission. We still have a few seats that I'd like to fill and also replace so that we can get the boat rolling. Get it?
No pun intended. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
So I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor to recommend favorably Mr. Mergen's approval to be part of the commission.
And I strongly second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, properly second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All abstain, against, pass. So it's going to the council favorably. Congratulations, guys. Please keep in touch. We are looking to make a huge impact in the South End, South Meadows area of the city. So thank you so much. You don't have to stay on the meeting. Yes, Councilwoman Surgeon.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, but if I can just also ask the two new members if they would work with the other members to come to the council, at least once a year and give us an update on what's
Yep.
going on because one of the things, Councilman Sanchez, you have made me so much aware of what goes on with the levy. So I would really hope we could come back a year from now and let us know, I know you meet with them. I know the commission meets with the mayor, but the council very rarely get updates.
Yep.
And so if you could come back and let us know, that'd be great. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon. And by the way, just to add to that, Frank De La Ripa, who is our city engineer, excellent resource. He understands the whole dynamics of this. We also have a Clarence Corbett, very intelligent man, understands about the levy and all and everything else that goes with it. So, if you need their contacts, you can reach out to any of us and we can get you that contact and have the conversation so they can bring you up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You don't have to stay on the meeting, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so then now I did reach out to Sita Baba Name and had a conversation with her. So she will not be on this meeting at this moment. We are planning to meet later on. So can I entertain a motion to postpone her appointment?
I make a motion to
moved.
postpone. Oh, so moved.
I've got, I just had a question for you before you move on.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry. Somebody can second the motion and I can ask.
I'll second Councilman LeBron's motion.
Okay, now motion's been made, properly second, conversation.
Good, thank you, sir. Is that within our timeline? Once the mayor recommends the person for us to approve or disapprove, I forget what timeline that is.
Yes, that's within our timeline. This was presented August 8th, and I believe we have 60 days, if I'm not mistaken, Councilman Gale or LeBron.
Yeah.
Is it 60 or 90 days? I believe it's 60 days.
I thought it was 30.
I thought
It's 60 days, but I'm sure Corp Counsel Vassallo can confirm that.
Yes, so I'll reach out to them.
It is
60
60 days? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So it's
All right,
60 days.
so-
So we have to do this
yes.
by October. So we
Correct.
have lots of time.
For 8th.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so all in favor for the this postponement?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, noes, pass, is postponed until our next PDH meeting. Okay, now we're moving on to item number 5. Okay, item number 2.2. So item 2.2 is Mayor Brown in a company resolution authorizing the city of Hartford to enter into a purchase and sales agreement along with a 10-year tax fixing agreement pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 12-65 Bravo B with National Development Council. There was a public hearing Monday, August 15th on this item. And this is the Albany Woodland disposition and project. And then I believe we have Mr. Diaz. Are you here to speak on that?
No, Aaron will speak on that.
Okay, thank you, Director Charles Matthews.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is she on?
Oh.
I don't.
I'm still
There
here.
you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna.
Aaron will never go
Okay.
away, right, Aaron?
That is correct.
So, Aaron, you have the floor.
Great. Again, thank you, Councilman Sanchez and council members and everyone joining us tonight on the call. I will point out that we do have Health Director Liani Arroyo with us today. If there are any questions specific to this development as it relates to the health department. In addition to Director Arroyo, we have the two proposed developers of this property or the site, both NDC, the National Development Council. We have Kevin Grims and Jeff Person available for questions towards the end. And we also have Miranda Walker, who represents Genesis Trinity 2 developer of the second parcel. So with that, I am going to also share my screen once again. There we go. Then this into presentation mode. There we go. So tonight you are here to hear about the long-awaited project of the Albany Woodland redevelopment proposal. I'm sure everyone is aware there have been many, many years of trying to put together a development project on this site. They've done some starts, some stops, some failures, but tonight we're really excited to present a proposal that we think really truly represents what has been requested by the community over at least the past year, if not longer, to really create a development project that creates opportunities, brings small business development. It's an opportunity to subsidize commercial development in this neighborhood. It's long awaited investment that really needs to happen to really support the Albany Ave corridor. So as part of your council resolution, you were provided a term sheet that I'm sure was may have been a little bit confusing because of the way in which this deal was structured. So I'm going to try to talk through that and share with you how this is playing out. So this is a public-private partnership. On the screen, you see the overall site of what we're talking about for the Albany Woodland project. The goal is to combine 4 HRA-controlled lots with 2 private lots and then subdivide them into 2 parcels. As we were going through this past year, the goal has been to get shovels in the ground as fast as we possibly can. So with factors such as time is of the essence, lending capacities between CRDA and the city funds that are part of this deal, it really made sense for us to do this, develop the property into 2 parcels, work with one developer to structure the whole deal, and then work with Genesis Trinity to develop the second parcel. So 2 parcels. Parcel A will be sold to Genesis Trinity 2 for $250,000 with the proceeds that will go back into the development of Parcel B. Parcel B will be sold to the National Development Council, a nonprofit entity. However, the goal here is to create basically a city asset. But because of the funding, we really needed to bring a developer in to help make this happen with all of our constraints at the table. So what NDC is proposing to do is create a nonprofit entity, which will be a 5-member board with 1 City of Hartford representative and 1 representative from the Hartford Redevelopment Agency to construct, manage, and operate this building during the course of a 10-year term. Doing so will allow the funding to work out, and after the 10 years, there'll be an option for the city to take the property back in the name of the city of Hartford. So here's the current concept plan, which is subject to change. On this plan, you'll see, I think I went backwards a little bit. You'll see Parcel A and Parcel B. Parcel A, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. It's this darker dotted line.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great.
Yeah.
Is the parcel that we're proposing to send or to sell to Genesis Trinity 2. Genesis Trinity 2 proposes to build bring a commercial tenant, a national retailer, to this spot of about 2,500 square feet of commercial space. This will include a drive-through as well as 5 dedicated parking spaces for that development. And then over here on Parcel B, which will be basically a city-facilitated, city-funded project, city asset, managed by the NDC or this nonprofit entity that will be created to bring to the table a commercial development that is home to the health department, the City of Hartford's health department, a restaurant, a bank, the WIC Center, and a couple additional commercial tenant spaces, as well as a community room. I think it's really important to point out that these are the things and the factors that the community has expressed over the past year that they really wanted to see happen at this site. And we were able to come up with a site plan and a legal structure to make that happen. So plan highlights, again, this is consistent with the community's vision with the multiple commercial tenants. It also creates an opportunity for public parking, which is desperately needed along the corridor to support small businesses on Albany Ave. The total development cost is ranging anywhere between 15 to 17 million. We've had some fluctuation, but overall it's around 15 million to date, with a total square footage of combined both parcels about 38,000 square feet. Why we did it this way is it allows us to move forward independently and cohesively of these 2 developments to really truly move towards putting a shovel in the ground as soon as we can in 2023.
I'd like to cut in here. Can you go back 1 slide?
Sure.
So what are we looking at here? Is this the looking from Albany Avenue or Woodland Street?
So these are actually just some, I apologize, thank you. These are actually just some pictures of concepts of what the community has thought of what they've liked about design. So I think it's important to point out that we met with the community. There have been multiple actual conversations with the community. I believe Charles, going all the way back into the summertime of last year. We had a community meeting in December of 2021 where we presented these architectural concepts and designs to the community, and which is what they have said that they've supported and submitted for this overall development. So our idea is to create this concept or this vision for Albany Woodland.
Thank you.
Welcome. So
if I may, Aaron, I thought what would be less confusing perhaps to some folks, when you think about Parcel A, you think about Parcel A being on the Woodland Street side and Parcel B being on the Albany Avenue Street side. As you think, I keep getting A and B mixed up in my head, but I think about as Albany Avenue and Homestead. I'm sorry, Albany Avenue and Woodland, if that helps you.
Okay, and then just another like to add. So where it says Parcel B,
yes,
if you at the bottom of that drawing, we're looking. There's homes there, which is Oakland Terrace, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the way towards the end.
Right at the bottom.
Yep.
Okay, so you have a row of either multi-family or single homes along the bottom edge of that, which is Oakland Terrace. So this project's behind those homes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, little bit of highlights about Parcel A. Genesis Trinity is the proposed developer. As I said, we are joined today by Miranda Walker, who will get a chance to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her side of the project. They're proposing to bring a national retailer with a drive-through. This part of the deal is about a $1.9 million construction project with approximately 2,600 square feet of space for this commercial tenant. And what's really important is this sale will be subject to the standard requirements that we always have with our dispositions. So we'll be required to get their zoning and building permits approved. They'll have to follow the Hartford Affirmative Action Plan, which is the 15-30-15 plan. However, I think it's important to note that because these parcels have to be combined and then subdivided, in order to move this in that timeline, we are actually asking NDC to be the primary developer to go through those steps to then transfer Parcel A to Genesis under these terms and conditions. So here's the highlights for Parcel B. Again, NDC is the proposed developer who will create this nonprofit entity to construct, manage, and operate the facility for 10 years. The goal is to bring the health department and the WIC offices to this site, which will bring about approximately 65 employees to this parcel. And what you don't see here is that in Parcel B, we only show you a site plan with the first floor, but the health department is proposed to take up the entire second floor of this, well, correct that, most of the second floor here. The restaurant here, La Pearl, who we've been talking to, thank you to Miranda and her team. We do have a restaurant that's on board who wants to be here. They are proposing to actually take up 2 floors with a rooftop dining. So they will have a portion of the second floor as well to create a large, great, high-end-ish restaurant for this neighborhood. In addition, this plan calls for potentially 2 commercial tenant spaces. One of the things the community has asked for is really trying to get a bank on this site. And so we have been working feverishly. Charles has been working feverishly to make sure that we leverage or lock in a bank to this site. And one of the things I point out about this site plan that's interesting is that banks today do still need drive-throughs, but their drive-throughs are a little different. They no longer really have physical tellers at their drive-throughs. They use these electronic, almost like an electronic ATM where you can talk back and forth. And so in order to make all of this work—
Why are you slamming doors?
In order to make this work, you will see this drive-through that is located here on the site, which will accommodate a bank in any of these commercial spaces. And the only other thing I would point out about these commercial spaces is that The square footage of that space is subject to change based on the tenants that come in. So I want to say we have about 6,000 square feet, which includes the WIC Center on this plan, of space that can be flexed around a little bit, depending upon the commercial tenants that come to the space. But all in all, oh, most importantly too, we did include a community room. That was also a request to the community. You'll see that over here. So this deal is about a 12 million, give or take. It is primarily funded by a CRDA loan that was already approved by the Bond Commission a while back, along with a city grant as part of the overall ARPA plan. And then also keep in mind that that 250,000 from the sale of Parcel A will also go into the overall development here to support this development. And this will create about 3,400 square feet of commercial space. So key highlights for Parcel B and the overall development. What we're proposing to do as part of this nonprofit entity is to create a 10-year term. The 10 years is tied to our financing with CRDA. After the 10 years and the repayment is made, the city has an option to purchase the property back for $1, so it maintains and stays as a city asset. In order to make this work and all of the numbers to work with the funding, we're asking for a 10-year tax fixing agreement that doesn't create any taxes for the overall site, as this will, for all intents and purposes, be a publicly managed facility through NDC. The goal here is when moving the health department, we will use the rent payments that we typically receive from the health department to help subsidize and cover the debt service to the overall development, to help pay off a $5.5 million loan to CRDA. By doing this, what it does is it allows us the ability to subsidize those commercial spaces. We can build developments in the city, but it's so just as critically important that they're able to operate and be sustainable. So by doing this project in this fashion, we are able to create an environment where we can subsidize those rents to truly make the operations successful for our partners like La Pearl and the bank and the other commercial spaces on the site. And that's really important because we want to make sure that whatever we develop here is going to be successful and thrives within this neighborhood. Again, this nonprofit entity will own, operate, and be responsible for the management of the property. And this all must be established prior to the closing. Again, we're going to build in a purchase and sales agreement, much like the last discussion, to make sure these things are in place. All major decisions of this entity will require a consensus vote. And so that's really important. That will include both the city and HRA representation. So we will make sure that NDC will follow this plan and this term sheet, and that we will still have involvement and say in the growth and development of the site. In that, we will hold Genesis Trinity to the terms and conditions presented as part of this overall term sheet, but we are basically asking NDC to make sure they enter into such agreements with Genesis Trinity 2 once the property has been legally subdivided. In the event that Genesis Trinity does not perform or move forward, the nonprofit entity must seek an alternative developer that would be subject to the HRA and City Council approval again, or HRA's approval, but it will do so in a way to continue that development and to make sure that we're successful for the redevelopment of that site. And I apologize, it would be subject to HRA approval at the time it will have transfer hands. Last but not least, this would also include public parking. And the proposal is to have the Hartford Parking Authority or another entity manage the public parking lot for this site. Right now, we are fluctuating because the site plan hasn't been completely finalized. We're somewhere around 119, 120 parking spaces, give or take. So Councilman Sanchez, here is a rendering. This is early on. We are actually working on some new renderings. So this isn't exactly accurate to what is on the site plan, but for context, this kind of gives you the sense of taste and feel of what we've presented to the community and what we hope to get out of the visual effect of this project. Here, this would be the Albany Ave side. With La Pearl restaurant here on the corner. And then this space's bottom here would be the commercial tenant spaces. And again, originally they called this the health center, but that would be the health department taking up the second floor of this entire development. So a little bit about La Pearl, just so you know, La Pearl Restaurant and Bar, they are restaurant owners. They have been working with the city. They've met with the community. They own a restaurant in Stamford. So much is we've had community members actually go and visit them to taste their food. So they're super excited and they want to be here, and they're still committed to be part of this project. Again, you have Genesis Trinity 2. We have Miranda Walker on the call as well. Genesis has 45 years of experience in retail hospitality, mixed-use development. For this deal, it's really important. I've noticed it's not on these slides. They are coming in and privately financing their entire deal. So there is no request for the city. It's a purchase and sales agreement. So they'll be required to follow, again, the 15-30-15, but they're coming in with their own financing to make that national retailer space happen. NDC, this is just a quick overview of the developer for Parcel B. NDC is a nonprofit entity that with over 50 years, they do a lot of things. They do technical assistance, they do training and certifications, they have their own corporate equity fund, they work on financing and development. So they work with us. They work with us on looking at numbers, but they also work with us on their ability to develop sites. And they do have experience. And I'll ask Kevin and Jeff just to talk a little bit about the partnerships that they've had with other communities doing just this kind of work. Now, next steps and timeline, just for the edification of everyone, we are trying to move as quickly as possible. Again, this was structured in such a way to make that happen. So tonight we're looking and seeking for council's approval for the overall Albany Woodland redevelopment project based upon the term sheets that were presented to you in the council packets. Our goal is to have that council approval done over the next month. And then this does actually have to go back to the HRA for one final approval. And we hope to do that right after this approval. Much like the Arrowhead project, we will go into pre-construction, which means over the winter months, we will be moving to getting our zoning approvals in place and moving towards having all the factors that we need in order to get to a closing and sale of the properties. During this period of time, NDC will have to go through site plan, they'll have to do their subdivision. So there'll be a lot of things happening over the next 3 to 4 months to really get to a closing and sale for the spring of 2023. The goal then would be to see some construction in the early summer of 2023. With a grand opening of Parcel A, which is the Genesis Trinity, because they're privately financing, they will be able to move this rather quickly and see construction and grand opening by the end of next year. And just to be conservative, typically construction projects take almost 18 months or so to develop. We're shooting for a opening for Parcel B, which would be the city facility with the health department all by the spring of 2024. But most importantly, that means there will be shovels in the ground spring, summer, mostly summer of 2023. So what's really important to note out as I conclude this presentation is that there are 3 key requests as part of the council resolution packet that's before you this evening. The first and foremost is to authorize the disposition of the HRA controlled lots at 1137 Albany Ave, 1135, 1161 Albany Ave, and 426 Woodland Street to the National Development Council based on the term sheets that were attached. The second authorization is to authorize the mayor to enter into a 10-year tax fixing agreement for Parcel B with NDC, with the understanding that there is an option agreement for the city to take the property back after 10 years. And then item number 3 is to authorize the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with NDC or this established entity at a later date for the City of Hartford's Health Department and WIC services to be located into that space, not to exceed a lease payment of $270,000 per year. With that, that is the conclusion of my presentation. I would like to give a moment to introduce, if okay with you, Councilman Sanchez, Miranda Walker, from Genesis Trinity, and Kevin Grims and Jeff Pearson from NDC, just to share a little bit about themselves and then to take questions.
Okay, we can do that. And if you could take the screen down, and then once we get back to you, I'd like to go back to this that picture that you had up on there of the drawing.
Sure.
So Kevin Grims and we're Miranda Walker, right? From
Hi.
NDC. I mean,
Hi.
Miranda Dowell. Okay, hello.
Hello, I'm Miranda Walker Dowell, and I'm with Genesis Development Trinity. We're very excited to work with the City of Hartford. My specialty is working with retail across the country. We work with various retailers and we assist them in finding solutions in urban markets. Urban meaning very dense markets that you have to backfill and create sometimes invisible locations for. And they hired me to help them with this. And, you know, I was able to meet Charles and Aaron and their team, and was able to find a retailer who's interested in coming to this site. So I'm very happy to do that, and was very happy to reach out to La Pearl, because I think La Pearl is a great fit as well.
I'm sorry. Hold on, Miranda. Please mute your mics if you're not speaking. Kevin, thank you.
It's okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so, yeah, I was happy to meet Aaron and William and Charles and their team, and they told me about Woodland and Albany, and we were able to find a national retailer, and then we reached out to La Pearl up in Stanford, specifically because of how well they operated. We thought that it would be a good fit, and have made the introduction. It looks like things are moving forward. So we are happy to do everything privately. We finance these deals all over the country for these retailers. So we have financing in place, and you know, we're just happy to work with you guys on this project, and happy to work with NDC. So thanks for having us. Oh, you're still muted.
So quick question. Thank you.
Yes.
Besides being a financer, you're also an investor, correct?
Yes. So our company, Genesis Development, we develop specifically for retail, typically. And that does require some of my own personal funds, as well as some of my other partners. We also work with a large bank that assists us in rolling out our developments. We typically do 10 to 15 developments per year. And right now we're doing a lot of work in New England, in the Southeast, as well as Michigan and Ohio.
Thank you. You answered a couple of other questions that I had. Kevin, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I'd like to say is I apologize. I had put myself on mute. I have 4 children, and a lot of them need to be picked up in various times. And I'm just trying to coordinate that with my wife. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And for the last hour, I've been listening in, and really pleased to see all the progress being made in the city of Hartford. I sent a note to Councilwoman Surgeon that I was really impressed with the background screensaver that she had. I was like, wow, what a beautiful building. And I said, where is that in the city of Hartford? And she says, right here in the city of City Hall. So I've been in the City Hall in City of Hartford, but I forgot how beautiful that building was. So it was nice to see that. Because one of the things that we have been most involved with is restoration and rehabilitation of historically significant buildings. And certainly the city of Hartford has such a great stock of those historically significant buildings. And that's why I was glad to see that there was widespread support for the Arrowhead development block. Because there's not a whole lot of developers that would embrace and take on that development, even though they're really nice, historically significant buildings, very financially challenging. So give credit to Eric from Carabetta and the rest of the development team with Fernando for embracing that as an opportunity to reposition and redevelop the North End. And complement what else has been going on in that district. So as far as Albany Woodland, we're pleased to be involved in this opportunity in the North End. We have been working with the city very closely. NDC, just as a background, we're a national nonprofit. We have been working exclusively with municipalities and their economic development divisions and other nonprofits over the last 50 years we have a very simple mission as a nonprofit, is to increase the flow of capital into underserved communities. But how we have done that has evolved, and and changed over the years. But the simple part of what we're looking to do with our municipal clients is to get their prioritized projects done and to solve problems and to right-size public incentive packages. So with respect to Albany Woodland, we're trying to bring to bear everything that we've done over the last 50 years to help the city of Hartford reposition this block for what is best suited for the neighborhood. So what we normally do is provide development advisory services to our municipal clients. But over the years, we have developed a lot of other affiliates. We have a lending division, we have an investment division, and we have a development division. And we try to bring to bear all of those to assist our municipal clients for those prioritized projects. This obviously in the North End has been to get something developed at this block has been a big priority. And a few decades ago, we developed our development division to not only increase the flow of capital, but the other purpose of our nonprofit development entity is to lessen the burdens of government. So this is a big priority to develop this block. But what we propose to do is to utilize our affiliated development division. And we had petitioned the IRS to give us an opportunity to create a development division that would allow us to have a nonprofit and create a development entity that would establish a nonprofit entity or created create a unlimited number of nonprofit entities for social infrastructure, and in this case, it's for creating this entity to establish a development entity for the health department as well as the restaurant and other affiliated entities. So we'd work with the city of Hartford to develop this property, including the restaurant and the health department, on behalf of the city, based upon the funding structure. And as Aaron had mentioned, we would have representation from not only the city of Hartford, but the Hartford Redevelopment Agency to do this on behalf of the city. So we'll work together with the city to do this on behalf of it, and it's liquid, but we'd be happy to work with it to create the development structure on behalf of the community and the city. So be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate the explanation and sharing the information with us and the rest of the council. So I'd like to go back to Aaron. Oh, there you go. So Aaron, before we start taking questions, I do have a couple of questions myself. If you can go back to that screen with the drawing. Okay, thank you. So in this drawing, yes.
Sorry.
Okay, that's a good shot. So right now we're looking at Albany Avenue to your left, and at the front of the screen is Woodland Street now. Okay. So we're gonna stay on this screen then, right?
Okay.
Is that the one you wanted?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought this
Yeah,
was.
no, that's okay. We
Okay.
can stay on this one. All right, to your far left is the church, correct?
Yes.
Okay, to your far bottom is the row of homes. Now, I can't help but notice how large the parking area is. and the issues of flooding that has occurred in the last several years, especially when we have those freak storms. Has there been conversation of incorporating a retainment or detention, or it would be a detention system for rainwater and also bioswales, so it will minimize flooding? Because my concern is this large parking area will have a negative effect towards the homes at the bottom and towards the church.
Well, you can grade it, if I jump in, Aaron, to have it run towards Woodland Street or run towards Albany Avenue. It doesn't necessarily have to run towards the house that you mentioned before on Oakland Terrace.
But that, right, and I understand that, but that's still going to create a flooding issue. There's no, the runoff, whether it's going towards the back of these homes, will be a negative effect. But flowing into Woodland Street and Albany Avenue will also just increase the flow, to which there's no capacity when we have an event that we, the out events that we have recently. So if you can, please look into a detention type of system and bioswales to collect the rainwater. But it's also beneficial with that type of system where you can, if we're going to, well, right now we have, I don't know how many hundreds of trees on Albany Avenue. It can also help to irrigate these trees, so it's less costly to the city.
Okay.
And we can have that conversation later. I have a lot of ideas when it comes to this type of technology.
All right.
So the only thing I would add, though, is this is a new construction development. And so our planning and zoning regulations and DPW would most certainly require us to look into that to make sure that that is not created as a result of this development. So it's a little premature in the stage of development at this moment, but it is something that will most certainly be addressed during the next steps and phases as we go forward with a site plan review and all of that. So it is something we've been thinking about. It is a concern. We are fully aware of the impacts of flooding along Albany Ave. And so we will most certainly make sure that this development deal adheres to whatever we can and what is required to make sure that we do not create more of a problem there.
Okay, thank you. And if we can go back to the normal screen.
Sure.
So I also like to bring up a concern that was shared with me by Councilwoman Surgeon. Looking at the packet on page 3, tenants and easements on the third bullet, where it comes to the language here. Developer agrees to enter into a management agreement with the Hartford Parking Authority or another mutually agreed upon organization to operate the public parking lot with approximately 130 parking spaces. So the concern here is that, and I know you shared some with us, some information with me earlier, but the concern here is that have the community been a huge part of this decision making when it comes to metering that parking lot or not?
Well, I would say this. I think it's fair to say, some may disagree, that it's a mixed bag. If you talk to some of the retail businesses, they would argue they want constant turnover. So that suggests you're going to have reasonable metered parking. Perhaps something like, and we haven't settled on this yet in any way, shape, or form. Kind of early, you may have a situation where the first hour and a half is free, and after the first hour and a half, you pay $1 or something. That is to keep the cars turning over. You don't want people parking there all day. So that's one option. There are other folks who may say, no, they want to have parking for the area residents and they can park there all day. So this is something we're still working on. And at somewhere down the road, council person, we will probably have some additional meetings with the Hartford Parking Authority, neighborhood folks and others, and try to dope this whole thing out. So we're not clear yet, but we're thinking it might be some kind of combination that I just described.
And Charles, if I may add, I think it's important to note that I know that the Hartford Parking Authority has been having discussions with the community over parking. And one of the things that they are trying to do is they are actually going to pilot a residential program. And I believe on Woodland Street, they are looking at putting together a residential parking plan to really support parking for the residents as well in the neighborhood. So there have been multiple discussions to date with the community as it relates to that and public parking.
Okay, so is it safe to say that as far as that piece, that's still under negotiation, or if we do pass this, is it permanent?
Well, I would say it's going to be developed, and obviously we don't want to do anything that's inconsistent with the neighborhood because those folks live in that neighborhood. We just want to make sure that we design something that will work for the existing businesses as well as the residents. But yeah, we understand the concern, and we're going to try to make something happen that makes sense for every stakeholder in the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from my colleagues? Councilman LeBron.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez, and through you, Mr. Chair. So the first question I have, Aaron, on the presentation, you said that there was a 10-year option where the city can buy back the property for $1. Can you give us an instant as to why we wouldn't buy it back for $1?
I think we're going to take it back for $1.
Yeah, we are.
I think we've invested a significant amount of funds into this to make sure that it's successful. And especially in this neighborhood, I think it's so important that we still have control over that success. And the one way we know in government that we can have that success is to have that control. So I don't see why we wouldn't. It's just written in such a way. It's written in such a way.
Councilman Sanchez,
Okay.
I think you can mute him.
Can everyone else mute their mics, please?
I think it's Kevin. I think you could mute him.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
We'll accept the option for $1. We're going to take it.
So with it, just why not just put language in that just says we will instead of option?
I think that, I mean, we could, but I think, when we put this together, we were trying to be flexible with the financing, and we were able to make it so that we had the 10 years to have the repayment schedule with CRDA to make sure that's consistent. So I think it's more of just having that flexibility still in place as we go through this process. But I think your point's well made, that if we get to a point, we could absolutely just say that we want to take it back after 10 years or once I think actually, William, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's also tied to the financing term as well in the way it's written in the term sheet. So we would set it up as such.
Yeah, and just and through you, Mr. Chair, the reason why I say that is, and I say this lovingly with attorneys probably on this meeting and or watching this meeting, the more wiggle room provided, the more opportunities to allow footholds in the door. So whenever we can, create very concretized language to not allow litigation potentially, I think we should definitely head in that direction. But thank you, Aaron. The second question I have, Mr. Chair, is the $270,000. Would that be the normal rent that we are currently paying to Bergdorf?
So, Director Arroyo, I believe it actually is a little bit more, but these are the numbers that were discussed originally when we had started the discussion about Albany Woodland and where we were willing to go as far as rent payments. But I'll turn that over to you, Director Arroyo.
So that has fluctuated over the years that I've been here. It has gone up. That is a higher watermark than we currently have. I want to be clear that the city does put a budget line item for rent for the Bergdorf. It does not ever spend that full amount because we do charge our projects rent. So even if if that price were to be the number that we settle on, that would also go down based on the fact that we do charge our projects some rent to be able to continue our facilities here. And I'm not sure how this is going to be structured, but currently at the Bergdorf, it includes all services. So I know that was something that we were looking at in terms of the cost and maybe needing to increase the cost of the current rent that we're paying in order to help the project move forward and work.
So thank you, Director Arroyo. And so with that being said, is it close? Is it within 30%? I mean, it just seems that it is exponentially more than the rent that we are currently.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not exponentially more at all.
No,
I think we're at about 220, 230 right now. I don't have the right number in front of me. It is not exponentially more at all.
Okay, thank you so much, because I mean, anyway, I was going to say an offline comment because anyway, all right, moving on through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll make this quick. This was a very publicized parcel, and I think we shouldn't ignore that for the folks that are watching and or folks who have questions. So one of the things with this parcel was community involvement, and there was community concern. I know we touched upon community involvement and there was buy-in. Can I ask who was the audience, the current makeup of that community buy-in?
Well, we've had community meetings with what I would call the existent Upper Albany Development Inc., but also with the Upper Albany NIZ. We've talked about this project. That's the other day, the Albany Main Street organization run by Marilyn Reese, they put together another meeting, and we had a number of the merchants up and down Albany Avenue, and we made this precise presentation to them. And I think it's fair to say that we have addressed all the issues that the community have indicated they wanted. They've made it very clear to us that they wanted a site that people would drive to and not drive by. They want a site that they could be proud of. They wanted a set down restaurant. They knew we were going to move the health department there. They know about the national retailer. We can't say it publicly, but they know about the national retailer. And they did not mention a bank necessarily, councilperson, but as you may know, there are only two banks in North Hartford. The Bank of America east of this site, and they have a credit union on by Terry Square. We're probably 95% at the point where we have identified a bank that will also be at this site, a full service bank with ATM capabilities. So we think, and they want to parking. So we think we have met all the community needs, given all the conversations we've had with the community for the last year and a half. They will say 30 years, but I haven't been around 30 years. So I'll say the last year and a half. So we think we have solid community input. Like they have said to me, and what Councilperson Surgeon have said to me, who's a major person in that community, the proof's in the pudding. They now want to see the cranes and the bulldozers on site making it happen. And we understand that. We feel that pressure.
And just one more comment, Council, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I definitely agree with the concept of drive up and drive through. That has been some contentious in various neighborhoods. Just a statement. So I think there are opportunities where we can be transparent, and I say collectively, right, in the opportunities, particularly where you have HRA and you have city votes on major decisions. I would highly recommend that those be publicized and transparent, and if they're in person, that we can have community members be a part of those meetings. This is a very important parcel to a lot of people, and there's a lot of vested interest. And I think we all want to see it successful. And part of success is the efforts of transparency and bringing in the community. So I would just recommend in any and all aspects, if there are opportunities to not only provide updates, but also provide insight through very public meetings. I think that would be important to the success and the vitality of this development. Thank you.
And then now I have a quick question, and then Councilwoman Surgeon will get on. So this question is for Director Arroyo. You disappeared on me here.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Okay, thank you. So as far as the new facility, okay, what's the comps between that versus Bergdorf? Is it the same square footage, or is it more? Obviously, it will be a new building with built-in efficiency to save on heating and cooling, for example. But what's the square footage versus what you have in Bergdorf?
So we currently have about 21,000 square feet in Bergdorf. It is a lot of unused space or not well-used space because of how the layout is. If you recall, this entire building was a clinic. And so we've situated offices and clinic spaces. And so we have a lot of space that is not used because you have a huge lobby, we have huge waiting areas. And then we also are bursting at the seams because there's not enough office spaces or cubicle spaces in terms of being able to store things. So we've been working closely since conversations on this parcel started when I got, almost when I got here, and now under Charles and with Aaron and William more closely in the past couple months about what this could look like. So I have recommended and said that it is fine with us to go down in square footage, just considering how much sort of dead square footage we have here that's unusable, as well as the fact that our WIC office that's located here in the North End would move to the first floor as a storefront. That also gives us some flexibility of being able to go down in square footage. I also do want to just, because Aaron, you had WIC offices moving, just so that everyone is clear. The only WIC office that is moving to this new development when it happens and opens in 2024 is the current WIC office that is located in the Bergdorf building. Our WIC office on Main Street in the Hispanic Health Council building will remain where it is at. We are under contractual obligation with the state of Connecticut to maintain 2 WIC offices. So we do have flexibility, again, in terms of the square footage piece about be able to go down rather significantly, I think, and still allow room for growth for us in the future. And that's been a point that Charles and I have discussed of how many people we actually have that are sitting in Bergdorf currently, and where we think we may be growing. When I first got here, we were a smaller department. We have grown quite a bit and we continue to grow. And so we're looking forward to being able to create spaces that are flexible and usable to allow for some growth in the future.
Okay, thank you, Director. Appreciate that. Aaron, you'd like to add anything? No? Okay. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think when we first got elected back in 2020, this project came to us, I believe in 2020, and with a developer. And this is where we have the flow, and it starts and we get a new developer, and then something happens and it doesn't work out, the stack isn't right. And so we're back at this again in 3 years later. Let me state that I have been working on this project for over 30 years. It's a very long time to work on a project in the city of Hartford, which is 2 or 3 blocks from where I live, to say, we want something. This is a community has been asking for this project to be developed. We have been through 4 development service director. So let me say that this community has been very, very active in giving the city of Hartford their opinion, what they would like to see. They attend meeting after meeting after meeting. And this is where we're at now. This is personal for me. This is a fruition of a project which I was one of the people in the community that started. This project started way before we even had Route 44 developed with a streetscape. And we got the state developed the streetscape, and the city of Hartford has not done anything with this piece of project. So let me say that I may not agree with 100%, and I think I have shared my opinion with the development services regarding the parking issue, but I'm not going to let one issue stop this project from going forward. It's too near and dear to the community. They have been going to HRA meetings. You know, Councilman LeBron talked about the HRA meetings. We have gone to HRA meetings testifying from the community that the HRA passed this project and agreed to this. Development Service in the last month have been to the community at least 2 times, doing a presentation on what the project is supposed to be. I believe the last community meeting we had, which is a couple of weeks ago, everyone in that meeting agreed to what is proposed on the table. They do understand that, you know, a little bit may change here or there, but the overall presentation of what is going to be developed from a sit-down restaurant, we have 16 restaurants in Albany Avenue. And one of them I can go in and have a cup of coffee and have a meeting or have a meal. We have 4 churches. And if I go to one of the restaurants in downtown or in the neighborhood, I see a lot of the parishioners going, you know, after church on Sunday. And that's economic development leaving Hartford. So this project brings economic development. I am grateful. Even though I pick on Aaron and I pick on Mr. Matthews, I am truly grateful that we have come to this point where it feels like I want to breathe now. So Aaron and Mr. Matthews and everybody in DDS, I'm grateful. I personally want to thank everyone because I never thought we would have gotten to this point that a community can actually see and be proud of something that the city of Hartford has done for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon, for sharing with us. Much appreciated. Do I have any other comments? Okay, Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions on the Parcel A, if I may. Do I understand, Aaron, that with respect to Parcel A, it's just going on the tax rolls and paying full taxes?
That is correct.
Great. Second question, we keep talking about retailer on Parcel A, but and the drawings all show a drive-through, and I'm just wondering, is it clear that this retailer is not a fast food restaurant? It's something other than a fast food restaurant?
We know exactly who the retailer is, but they're still trying to solve an issue, so they rather not say publicly, but it's not a fast food. You know, it's not anything that the community would not be pleased with. It's a legitimate national retailer that they'll be very happy with. Some people in the community already know. We have not publicized it because of the desire of the retailer to put a few more ducks in a row before it becomes public.
Well, I'm thrilled that the community is thrilled with it. I mean, I think that's incredibly important. And I just, you know, I just don't understand the concept of a drive-through for a retailer, but I'll probably understand it better when I see who the retailer is.
And you say, "Ah, I get it."
Okay, I'm waiting. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. No other questions.
Okay. Any other questions or statements from my colleagues? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Councilman Sanchez, just a friendly reminder that this also will need an 8-24 condition on an 8-24 as well.
Okay, so it's subject to the approval or favorable report from planning and zoning?
Correct, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So like to entertain a motion.
Councilwoman Surgeon, do you want to make the motion?
To wipe my eyes for a minute. I was getting a little bit emotional there.
We feel you.
So I would be very proud to make a motion of sending this this resolution back, or this proposal back to the council favorably, with the understanding that we need to have the 824 review, which is a positive, which that should be positive towards approval.
I second that.
Okay, motion's been made and properly second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Awesome. Abstain? No. It passes to council favorably. Thank you, everyone. So, we still have one more item. We're almost done here, but not, it's the last one, but not the least.
Poor
So,
Owen. Yeah. We have our senior planner. Owen, I think, Mr. Chair, is next.
Yeah, so let me just announce this item is item 2.7. We're going with accompanying resolution approving the recommendation of the Capital Region Council of Government, known as CROG, Rapid Routes Transit Priority Corridor Study. Okay, and who is here to speak on?
Our senior planner, Owen Dirch. Owen, are you there? I'm looking now.
Yes. Good evening,
was there
Council.
earlier.
Okay, I see it. Okay,
Sorry,
so,
Owen, you have to wait so long, but thank
That's
you.
all right.
So Owen, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Council and Chair Sanchez. My name is Owen Deutsch with the Planning and Zoning Division, and I'm here with Amy Patine from Nelson Nygaard and Kara Radzins from CROG, and they will be delivering the presentation on the CROG Rapid Routes Transit Priority Corridors Study, which was endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting July 26th, and I am on hand to answer any questions you may have for city staff.
Thanks, Owen.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Amy Patine. I'm a principal with Nelson Nygaard and the project manager for this effort. And Kara Radzins is here tonight as well, who's the transportation deputy with CROG. Kara, we've got our short presentation. Should we share our screen, or I know it's late, so
yes.
I don't know what would be most helpful. Okay.
Yeah, Amy, I think we can, we had cut it down quite a bit, so I think we should be able to move through it pretty quickly for folks.
Okay, great. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so Kara, you want to maybe just kick us off and put the study in context?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Kara Radzins. I am the transportation deputy at CROG. We are the MPO for the Metro Hartford area, so Hartford and 37 additional municipalities around it. So we're here tonight to get your endorsement, hopefully, of the recommendation for our transit priority corridors study. This study, and Amy will talk a little bit more about the history, but this came out of a recommendation from a previous CROG study that we had worked with the city on to look at priority transit treatments for a number of corridors within the city of Hartford, as well as one in East Hartford. So I did just want to quickly contextualize this. This was a planning study. It was completed in coordination with stakeholders and the public. Stakeholders included the city of Hartford, the town of East Hartford, DOT, CT Transit, and a number of others. And so the reason that we are seeking municipal endorsement is that we can then bring it to our policy board for their endorsement, and then these recommendations can become part of CROG's broader transportation goals and kind of transit vision for the region. So then from there, it would move into kind of more of the implementation and more of a design phase. So we are still relatively early in the process, but kind of we do need municipal support of the recommendations so that we can continue moving it forward, continue working with DOT and CT Transit into deeper design and eventually implementation. So with that, I will hand it back over to Amy to run you through our findings.
Thanks, Kara. And just to highlight this graphic on the right side of the screen, this is part of the final chapter of the report. And as Kara said, we're at the beginning teeing up recommendations that, again, we're seeking municipal support to hopefully allow the communities in the region and the state to carry forward towards implementation. And again, there was a study done about 5 years ago that was called a comprehensive transit service analysis. It looked at all bus services and CT Transit's Hartford division. And one of the key recommendations coming out of that study was to focus in on 6 high ridership corridors to see what investments might be made to improve the transit experience and operations of transit on those corridors. And so when this study kicked off, that was our charge, and it was to look at what transit priority measures could, again, improve the speed and reliability of transit services on these major corridors. There are national best practices, cities around the country looking at ways to improve the transit experience for bus riders to make it feel, to the extent possible, more rail-like, nicer stations, faster service, amenities, and just an overall improved experience. And so again, those were the objectives we set out to achieve. Here are the 6 corridors. You can see it on a map. There's 34 transit routes that serve these corridors collectively, and the ridership on these corridors represents 68% of all Hartford area bus riders. So a real opportunity to have impact on a large population of people who rely on transit every day. So again, transit priority can mean a lot of things. We looked at a range of potential improvements that made sense in the Hartford region. And these were the 6 sort of fundamental elements that came together for us in this study. So there's a lot more detail in the report, but these are the features of these priority treatments that we look to put in place in Hartford along these corridors. It's not all one size fits all. Here's a sort of geographic infographic representation of the corridors. You can see, again, 34 bus routes. There's 106 transit traffic signals on these corridors. We are recommending moving forward that transit signal priority be considered, which would give priority to buses as they approach an intersection to, again, improve the reliability of the service. We collectively across the corridors proposed about 12.5 miles of dedicated right-of-way for buses. These could be short stretches, again, where there's fit to do so within the geometry of the roadway, or where traffic congestion was such a challenge that buses could really benefit. Sometimes it ended up being smaller segments called queue jump lanes that would basically allow the bus to jump ahead of the traffic at an intersection. Again, conceptual. This was us looking at what was available in the geometry of the corridors, looking at the number of people who could benefit, really weighing that along with costs and coming up with recommendations that we'd love to see the region take forward. And then a series of bus stop improvements. So we developed a classification of 4 types of bus stops that range from really all the bells and whistles down to basic stops, and then looked at ridership, looked at access to some of the key destinations on the corridor, and proposed a program of work that would really enhance and improve bus stops, including consolidating or optimizing the spacing of stops to, again, improve the service along these corridors. And so this is also a presentation that we shared at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we honed in on some of the specific components of the study that would be carrying forward. So service levels, again, we took the service levels of CT Transit today, but they may, and this is outside the scope of our study, may make changes to services. Hopefully they'll gain some efficiencies with some of the improved investments. And so there could be service changes coming in the future. Again, engineering and design would need to be advanced, much more public outreach, especially as we look to consolidate stops. And then one of the big issues for the municipalities, for the state, that we spent a lot of time talking about at our working group was who would be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of these higher end bus stops. So put in nice shelters, real-time information, bike racks, potentially trash cans. Someone obviously needs to maintain them. This is not unique to the Hartford region. Transit agencies everywhere struggle with this and how to partner with communities to make it happen. So we really left off with outlining many approaches tried to pull some case studies from elsewhere, but we realize this is a big item that the city will want to consider moving forward. And then we also kind of dove in on stop spacing to make sure that some of the community concerns that came up during our process around spacing and any addition or elimination of stops, that we had real clarity in the document of how we got there. We are proposing a 40% reduction in bus stops, but the vast majority of people are still within easy walking distance to a stop. And we were able to put a few stops back at the in response to some of the public feedback we got. Again, these are things that CT Transit could do outside of this study, but we really did take a deep dive and spend a lot of time talking with the public and neighborhood associations to cite the stops and the associated improvements in places where people would benefit the most. Just a note on Title VI, because again, this has come up during our public presentations this summer. Title VI protects transit riders from any, particularly minority and low-income riders, from any major changes to services that could impact them adversely. So I'm just not going to go through all this in detail, but CTDOT does have a definition of a major service change. This study actually doesn't even rise to the level of that, because again, these are recommendations that are really enhancing the rider experience. This is overall a net positive for transit riders. I think the opportunity and challenge moving forward is going to be, again, all the municipal, regional, and state stakeholders coming around the table to identify funding, to identify maintenance agreements, and just to coordinate all the moving parts to make these changes happen. So like I said, additional opportunities for all these processes to continue to play out as we move into design and development. What we're really, and we're hoping that the state, CTDOT, will be taking the lead as a project sponsor if at the conclusion of this study, and then again, advancing engineering and design, working again on the ongoing operations and maintenance and funding, and then hopefully getting to construction and helping the region where you've got significant, again, transit ridership here on these corridors, see the benefits of transit priority treatments, which again are happening all around the country and really improving bus service, which is really the workhorse of any transit system in a major city. And here are our next steps. We finished our public comment period. We received endorsement from the town of East Hartford. We received endorsement from the Planning and Zoning Commission, as Owen pointed out. And so we're really looking to finalize the document with your consideration and approval so that we can go to the CROG Policy Board in September to complete the process in this project. That is all I have for a formal presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Kara. I appreciate it. And oh, I'm sorry, Amy.
Kara,
I do have a couple of questions before I open it up to my colleagues. So, you know, I realize that New Britain Avenue and Wethersfield Avenue is not part of the major corridor, although it is. There's a good ridership from Hartford downtown into West Hartford, especially going to the mall for employees and also customers. We also have Wethersfield Avenue that goes into the Celestine Highway. So I'm just curious as how were these corridors identified as a priority versus the two that I mentioned that are not?
Sure. And Amy, I'll start and then I'll let you
go for it.
Get a little more technical. So the original 6 were identified in part of the CSA that Amy mentioned that we completed a few years ago. At that point, it was based on ridership as well as transit need within those corridors. At the onset of this study, we revisited those assumptions and kind of confirmed that these corridors still made the most sense. Both the corridors you mentioned came up at the onset of this. At that point, Sandy Fry was still with the city of Hartford, and she mentioned them. With Wethersfield, there was a debate, since it does run parallel to Franklin for a piece, whether it made sense to put this level of investment into both of those, given that they are so close. And the decision was made to stick with Franklin. And then New Britain Ave was really kind of right on the edge in terms of the kind of assessment that we did. But ultimately it was decided. Thank you, Amy, for it's always good to have backup slides. And so we did ultimately, and again, I'll let Amy get into the tech a little bit more. We did confirm that the corridors still were the correct ones. We did adjust some endpoints. But, and I just, one quick note on the ridership, we did look both at pre-pandemic and during COVID numbers to kind of see how things still looked, understanding that when we started this in 2020, that current ridership wasn't necessarily all we wanted to look at. So we did pull 2019 as well to make sure we were looking at a fuller picture. But Amy, if you want to add.
Yeah, no, I think you explained how we selected these corridors well. I just share this map to show a piece of the analysis that we went through at the outset with the shading of the yellow, orange, and red, just really being a combination of population and employment density and taking into consideration transit reliant populations. And you can see we translate that into service levels. And so basically the darker the color, the stronger the transit market is in that block group area. And then it's overlaid with these blue dots, which are just proportional to daily boardings in CT Transit services. And so we did, let's skip ahead here, I think make some, in the end, modifications, again, based on conversations with our working group, and we had a larger technical advisory group. And then we basically drove around and looked at some of the land uses too. So that's how we ended up with the corridors, but as you can see, there's strong ridership in the city, and I hope this is the beginning of a longer program of work to implement transit priority treatments, because you certainly have a city that's worthy, given the transit levels of transit ridership you have, of making these types of improvements. And so I think we were starting somewhere, but certainly more opportunity to expand transit priority in the future.
And the data that you collect, is this in partnership with Connecticut Transit with their ridership? Is that where you collected most of the data for passengers? And was the consideration, so you said pre-COVID and during COVID, right? If I recall, during COVID, as recently, and I still believe it's still in effect, ridership is free. So is there were you able to calculate the difference from paying versus the free? Was there an uptick in the ridership, or was it similar?
Yeah, we did this analysis. Oh, sorry. We did this analysis before the free fare policy took effect. So this is not reflective of free fare.
Well, it was right at the beginning.
Oh, during.
Yeah, at the onset of COVID, it was also free. So it was free, and then it was paid again, and now it's free. It's back.
That's right. I'm thinking the current fare free period, but you are right, Kara.
So at the time that we started the analysis, it was still closer to peak COVID. So the ridership was down at that point, even though it was fare free. But what we were able to see from that data was where within that smaller pot of ridership, what corridors were still standing out. And it was still very,
it was all relative. Yeah, or proportional.
Right. And the fact that there was still kind of these corridors popping out, even when ridership was low, really demonstrated to us that the people riding in those corridors are kind of the backbone of the transit riders within the system.
Okay. And then I just have one more question before I pass it on to my colleagues. Are we looking at a very different type of transit system, trying to find the right words, where the routes, you say dedicated lane, right, for the buses, with minimal traffic stops or traffic lights. Is this what we're looking for? So basically, for example, in Japan, they have dedicated lanes where if you're parked there, you'll get tolled out right away. It's strictly for buses and buses only. Is that what we're talking about?
We are talking about, yes, lanes that are dedicated, usually painted red, although there's, lots of variations, but there's examples in Providence today nearby, just the New York City. Here's an example of a rendering of what it might look like, just to paint a picture here. But yeah, red paint on the roadway, not changing the geometry of the roadway. We looked very carefully, the engineers on our team went through all the corridors to see where was the geometry feasible, whether a parking lane might be able to be removed, or if there was, two lanes of travel, could it be consolidated into one? We looked at traffic levels. We didn't touch any areas where we thought we would be impeding traffic flows. We modified any area where parking was critical to local businesses. We really were quite frankly, we're conservative, tried to avoid, making any major modifications, really tried to grab where we could to improve transit.
Okay, I appreciate that, because you just answered another question I did have, because I'm very wary on how we treat our small businesses in the city when it comes to their dependence on their customers having parking spaces on the street.
Yeah.
Besides, their parking lots that may overflow. There's been issues with that when it came to bike lanes, for example. So with that said, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. In the cover sheet that came along with the resolution, the Department of Planning and Zoning Commission, had some issues with the original presentation back in June. And now I guess they have agreed to it. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Owen, could he enlighten us what those concerns were, and were they addressed? I'm sure they were addressed, so the Planning and Zoning Commission would not have approved this.
Yes, Councilwoman Surgeon, those concerns were related to the stop optimization and any impacts on riders with mobility challenges, as well as funding for the maintenance of bus stops. And language was inserted in the resolution to address those concerns, as well as modifications made or proposed to be made to the study itself to address those concerns. There was also a concern about the opportunity for continuing public input, and those concerns were also sufficiently addressed in the view of the commission and city staff.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Owen. That answers my question. Just one more question to you, Mr. Chair. When CROG does this research and come up with a report, are they looking for funding from the federal government? What do you do with this when you have finished all your studying? What is the ultimate goal for all this?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the goal is implementation, and kind of the steps along the way include any recommendations from our study need to be adopted by our policy board. At that point, they become considered a recommendation and a priority for the region. And so those can then go into, for example, our metropolitan transportation plan, which is kind of the overall transportation vision that CROG has for our region. And one thing that helps with is a lot of times if there are, for example, discretionary grant programs from the federal government, one of the things that they look for is that projects put in under those programs are kind of part of a vision, either on the municipal or the regional level, because any federal funded project needs to go into the TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program, which is managed by the MPO, in this case, CROG for Hartford. So the fact that it's already in regional documents as a priority helps with applications like that. Concurrently, we would continue working with the DOT and with CT Transit on getting some of these recommendations into their service change program, so that potentially some of the things that need less kind of high capital investment could get implemented without a substantive federal influx of dollars.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Do I have any questions, statements from my other colleagues? Councilman Gale.
Just a couple of comments. I'm thrilled that the study went forward, and love all this work. I'm a big proponent of mass transit, so anything we can do to improve it. And I just want to add my own little voice. You've got a million comments already apparently on the whole bus shelter problem. It's it's unbelievably annoying and very discouraging when you want to go to buses, use the buses, and the bus stops are full of graffiti, half broken down, whatever. The other thing is on scheduling. I recently in Los Angeles, and I believe we were able to stand at a bus stop and point our phone at the sign, and it would tell us when the next buses came. And I know you also have that in your presentation. And hopefully we can get into the 21st century here in Hartford and adopt some of these advancements. So great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment or statements from or questions from my colleagues? Okay, I also, prior to entertaining a motion, I want to thank you, Aaron, Amy, Kara, and Owen, for the great presentations that you have submitted this evening for our audience. And thank you for sharing everything that we need to know. I'm pretty sure there's still more that we'll, be engaging with you guys just, to learn more about what's going on in the near future. So thank you so much. I'd like to entertain a motion for item 2.7.
I'll move that we send it back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made, properly second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Oppose? Okay, it's going to council favorably. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel Richard Vasallo, Director Matthews, and Director Howard. Everyone, have a great evening, and be safe. Stay dry out there.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.